Hello everybody and welcome to Bionic Commando for the arcade, the original 1987 arcade game.
So, no mechanical wife arms in this one.
Spoilers, Jova.
A spoiler that is over a decade old and a lot of people hate.
All right, let's turn up those lives, and yeah, we're on easy difficulty. We'll keep it at that.
I was gonna say, where's the music?
That's because it's an arcade.
Game over there. There we go.
It's an arcade. Usually in arcades, it depends on the game, but a lot of games had silence until you put in a coin.
I thought we were playing Bionic Commando, not Psycho Soldier. Whatever the game's called.
Okay, so Bionic Commando is
There's no sign of Athena here.
So yeah, Bionic Commando is kind of a platformer. I guess that's the best genre you can peg it to. Except you don't.
Platformer side scroller because it combines the shooting elements, kind of like Mega Man a bit.
A bit. Unlike with, however, you don't jump. Instead, you use this hook to. So basically, the way it works, and you can only jump for. Okay, if there's one thing I will definitely say that this game is definitely an 80s game. Yeah, unlike Contra, you don't have the ability to shoot diagonally and stuff like that. You can only shoot forward, which So yeah, in true old arcade fashion, this is one of those games that clearly is made to, and yeah, as you can see, if you don't land in the exact place, you'll basically just fall through the floor. So basically, you have to let go of the parachute, otherwise you'll keep falling until die. So interesting. Okay, so Bionic Commando, of course, is a game where it's all about the level design. Basically, it's all about figuring out what is the specific places where you can throw your hook, because while you can shoot diagonally, you can shoot your hook diagonally. So the hook basically is your best friend in this game. You have to try your best to possibly avoid enemies, because as you can tell, the enemies will overwhelm you, because all you have to defend yourself is this pea shooter that is not very useful for dealing with enemies. And trust me, it doesn't look that bad now, but trust me, when the later levels, the game basically takes the, as Teo puts it, the throw everything in the kitchen sink at you mentality for difficulty.
Question, Pedro.
Yes.
Did you ever play that Xbox Live version, the remake?
Actually, that's called Rearmed Edge, and it's not just for the Xbox.
Teo will be handling that one. But
I did talk. Pedro was the gritty reboot done by Green.
Oh.
The series did expand it a bit. It had a port of Beast on the NES, but from what I remember, it's not that great.
Actually, Gio, Pedro was asking if
I'm getting there, Jova. I'm getting there, Jova.
He'll get there.
Then there were a couple of Game Boy games, but those two are not particularly interesting. Then the same team that did the gritty reboot of 2009 did also a duology for PlayStation Network and Xbox Live called Rearmed 1 and Rearmed 2. For some reason, only the first one was also ported to Steam. The second is still, chained there. From what I heard, those are actually good, but I actually haven't played them myself yet.
Trust me, they're much better than the god-awful reboot.
I heard the reboot game is actually good.
One of the
again, that one that you'll be able to see eventually.
It just has a dumb story.
It has a moronic plot twist towards the end, but for the gameplay experience, it's perfectly serviceable. If anything, a step in the right direction will also handle the series in the future.
I love how
because Grin also made the Rearmed game.
I just mentioned that. Go ahead, Pedro.
I love how there's an end of stage 1 sign, like so
somebody was nice enough to put that there.
I can see. Anyway, go on. No, go on.
Oh wait. So the thing about the reboot is the gameplay is an acquired taste. If you can enjoy it, then sure, it's a fine enough game. Unfortunately, it's sort of a case similar to Lightning Returns, where the story is so bad, messes with the lore so terribly that, it's remembered more for its bad narrative than anything else.
What was a reboot?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Okay, it is technically a reboot, but it's in canon with the two rearm games. Mostly because they were done also by the same team as mentioned.
And the rearm games are a remake of this game and the second game, so...
No, there wasn't a second game, Jova. Rearm 2 is actually the first original sequel to the original concept, because, again, the other alternative was the NES port and the Game Boy port instead.
So essentially they made a remake of the first game and then made that canon with the reboot. So,
basically,
again, it was once again a confusing scenario going on with one of Capcom's reboots here and there. Okay, I'll just say this. I do feel like a lot of the problems, story aside, could have been fixed in a sequel, but, well, the reboot didn't sell well, and you know what that often means.
Well, that can be explained better another time. Yes, Pedro?
Yeah.
So yeah, as you can see, the game is brutally hard. You die in one hit. You have no way of extending your resistance to enemy damage. Meaning, as you can see, there's already quite a lot of shit coming out. And look at that! I shoot that guy, and the guy comes, and shooting him somehow gravitates him towards me. Like, what the fuck was
Pedro,
that? Go on.
Are you playing the version where we're fighting against Nazis?
No, actually, the arcade version is against two unspecified warring nations between World War II. Our protagonist doesn't even have a name yet, Jova, believe it or not.
No.
The NES game calls him Lad, seriously. I think it's starting with the Game Boy game that they started to actually call him Spencer.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure of that either.
Most people are familiar with the NES port because that was the one that came out back in the day, and a lot of people played on the NES. So that's the one that people are familiar with. That being said, I wanted to do this one because, well, the arcade version is the original one. The NES version is a port.
Got to go back to where it started. After all.
Exactly.
The NES version of Java is the one that actually features the Nazis, but for the West, at the very least, for the Japanese Famicom version, it was replaced with generic symbolism, and Hitler, yes, you actually killed Hitler in the NES version, was replaced with a generic Master D.
How ironic that the Japanese version was the one that got censored.
The Rearmed remake completely basically cuts this to the root and has a generic foreign nation ruled by an M. Bison lookalike called Generalissimo Kiglit.
It really is weird. Again, 1980s Nintendo America. So let me get this straight. Crosses in Final Fantasy, that's bad, but Nazi imagery is A-okay?
And again, remind you, this was in the American version too. It was the Japanese version that censored.
No, that's what I was saying, Jova. In the original NES American release of Final Fantasy 1, they took out the crosses from the ends because we don't want any religious imagery here. But you're okay with Nazi imagery?
If I recall correctly, even Doom wasn't safe from that because the LPAC do present normally a cross, but because of different reasons they had to actually change it. It was even a problem that persisted almost to this very day, and even with the more recent adjustment patches given to the modern versions of Doom, we still haven't restored properly the full of Red Cross, mostly because in other countries it's used a completely different symbol when it comes to healing, association.
So Doom also really, it's funny because Doom's another...
Again, like you mentioned, Joe, it's just for the LPACs, because the LPACs, being representing all medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, they presented a Red Cross, which is, the most common symbolism that in the West is most associated. However, in some other countries, it actually is not, Jova. That's also the reason why, instead of actually making a symbol that was exclusive to each country, they essentially adopted a unique generic symbol, but for all of them.
It is weird because it reminds me of
because isn't Doom another franchise that also has Hitler in it?
But it's Wolfenstein Jova instead.
No. In Doom 2, there's paintings of Hitler, which can be found in a portion of
Doom. The original Doom was censored various times as well. I remember that.
Yeah, I don't know about the mention to Jova. And maybe you're thinking, at best, Jova, it's because there is a set of Wolfenstein themed extra secret levels in Doom 2. Maybe you may be a Sony Bear, but the focus is not Hitler. Trust me.
Oh, I know that the focus isn't Hitler. I just said that he's in the game.
It reminds me of the 2002 version of E.T., where Steven Spielberg replaced the word terrorist with the word hippie. They redubbed it, and I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. The word terrorist is a big no-no, but you still allow the kids to swear. Like, what? I don't understand your logic here, right? Whatever.
Censorship laws in a nutshell.
Okay, to get back to this though. Since you can't jump, the key to progressing in this game is all about looking at the surroundings, the level design, and find good places to... In fact, this is actually my first time playing this version in a long time, and I actually forgot how I was supposed to get up there, so basically I just exploited the respawning to get there. There you go.
Basically, one thing that our protagonist can do is use the actual, grappling hook potentially in diagonal and even potentially swing to his direction. It's very clunky still, admittedly.
Yeah, this is the first game, and it shows.
This is not Spider-Man, in case you're wondering.
It really makes you feel like you're the Bionic
Sure.
Commando.
It's also interesting considering all the covers depicted the protagonist, sure, with what could be passed as bionic replacement, but the hook that he's actually throwing is actually more like a cord that's stapled in an extra compartment on his wrist, instead of having actually what the modern design is of having the hand properly being an arm complete with a rope that attaches from the arm.
Yeah, the idea is that you're supposed to find around the places where you can use the grappling hook to progress. So if you find yourself unable to progress, try going up or down and find another way. In other places you can use your grappling hook. The big problem is that as you're starting to realize, the more you move on, the more enemies the game throws at you all at once. And let me remind you, you die in one hit and you have no way of extending that lifespan. So basically, as you can tell, this is yet another game that makes itself as frustratingly cheap as possible, so you spend more quarters. End of stage 3.
You also might have heard previously, I think it was in stage 2 actually, what will become the more iconic, quote-unquote, theme from the franchise. It will actually be used in some kind of remix in every single game, actually. This was a theme that Capcom has always been strong in, creating very iconic themes for all of its franchises that will later be reprised properly, and become proper character themes despite originally starting as stage theme. It happened with stuff like a couple of Mega Man games too, but also stuff like Strider, Ghosts and Goblins. You could name any franchise that created around this era, and they were able to actually craft one of these that will eventually become these kind of iconic.
Yep, basically. So
Ow.
it can also be really hard because I need to shoot that thing there, but as you can see, that guy was running around the platform and he's very fast, so it's very hard to get in there without getting hit. Combined with the fact that, remember, you can't jump in this game, so you're very limited when it comes to your movement. So
I think that the whole not being able to jump thing was them really wanting to show off this cool gimmick about how you use jump for everything. However, this is one of those cases where sometimes that innovation hurts the game.
Yeah. That's why.
Remember,
there's a game that's basically a spiritual successor to this called Grapple Dog. And it's like, you can use the hook shot, but you can also jump. It's also very cute. I'm planning on picking that up soon.
The game was made like this probably for two reasons. One, they wanted to really emphasize and make you really want to experiment with the grappling. And second, the harder it is, the more quarters we'll be able to make.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these old arcade games are cheap as fuck.
Actually, since I hadn't mentioned, the composer just for this version, at least it's Harumi Fujita, which has been, let me see, he has done the sound effects for the first Ghosts and Goblins. That's a start. The composer for Final Fight, the video game, the Spawn video game on the Super Nintendo, the first Tomba, And yeah, he has been one of the guest composers in stuff like Streets of Rage 4 and Windjammers too. He's basically still doing stuff to this very day. That's pretty cool.
What was called Tom B?
That's because in Europe, the game is renamed Tombi because in some countries like mine, Tomba is actually the translation for grave. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey kids, come and play our brand new game, Grave.
Don't dig your own on the way there.
No, it's more like it was really unfitting considering what, Tomba is actually about,
Holy shit, look at this. Look at how much shit they throw at me.
You know, somewhere there's somebody who made a no-hit run of this playthrough, and
Oh, they are,
whoever
right?
managed to do that, I salute you.
It's one of those cases where you have to just study the game and basically, like, you have to get to a point where you know the
It's
game like
also
the back of your
two players
hand.
potentially, so I wonder if that also can help easily.
Because remember, now with emulation, we actually get to play this game over and over without, bankrupting ourselves. So, but back in those days in the arcade, before emulation was a thing, that we didn't have that luxury. So, it really is one of those cases where if you wanted to complete this game, better bring a truckload of quarters.
I'm actually old enough to remember what it was like with certain games and arcades here and there.
Yeah,
It was like Chuck E. Cheese was kind of a saving grace because they were very famous for being that you would only need one token to play a game. Which, let me tell you, was a godsend if you had a good amount of tokens.
Yeah, here's an example. See, as you can see, I had to go lower so I can find this other place where so now I can get past that wall. There you go. See, this is all about. Again, I do like the concept of having to use the hook and explore the level and find the correct path. It's a really good concept. But yeah, this first game obviously is a bit too simplistic about it. So obviously, the games that followed this would execute this concept better. But this one, this one is definitely very simplistic. And now we are fighting very tiny soldiers. Okay.
Yeah, these generic army comes in different sizes.
Oh shit! Look at that! Look how many enemies they suddenly flew on. Oh, look at this shit!
You see, here's what you do. You develop clairvoyance and then you proceed to win.
Yeah. There you go. See. Yeah, this is
You also have a time limit here because you're supposed to stop the missile.
Yep. So not only do you have to get through all these people without getting hurt once, you have to do it. You're being timed while you do it. So
some people will say that we players were tougher back then, and that's why we have fond memories of this game. And maybe that is the case.
Allow me, Jova.
Cow.
The reason we were quote-unquote tougher back in that day is because the games were cheap, so we basically had to just by tough. What they actually mean, Jova, is more persistent and stubborn. That's what they mean.
Yeah.
Good job. You still have the other missions to complete, though.
Oh, it's one of those games.
Don't worry, we're almost done.
It's more of a case of finish the rest of the level.
We still have to defeat the ultimate general guy. So
Again,
Hey,
this
you don't
version
have
is
to worry about
just
the countdown
random person.
anymore.
They don't
See,
really
look at
have a
this.
pattern, if I recall correctly.
you see, they have this guy on the platform, and yeah. See, fortunately, I was able to get through it. And now, we're about to get the final guy, and there you go. There you go. That guy with the beard, he's the final guy.
He marches back and forth, and
Notice how just a statue of himself. Even though there's an arm missing, and there we go. You fulfilled your duty. That was kind of anticlimactic.
anticlimactic.
Yeah. Well done. Your mission has been accomplished. A bonus of 1,000,000 points will be awarded for your successful mission, although evil has perished and peace has been restored. Wait, what? That sentence structure is terrible. We must make continuous efforts to maintain peace and to rebuild. Your mission will not be truly fulfilled until we regain a harmonious world.
I thought you said it was accomplished.
It wouldn't be a Capcom game without typos. Again, Capcom are the company that have famously mistyped their own logo name as Capcom occasionally.
Even so, I love that final sentence though. Your mission will not be complete until you've created a harmonious world. Yeah, that
So you're telling me that the protagonist is actually Peacemaker from the DC universe.
Of course.
Okay, and that was the original Bionic Commando. Blibs.
It looks like a video game that was made around the time. Very good looking and very decently sounding, but really hard just because you want your money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's not much I can say about it, to be honest. It's just that.
Alright, Dej.
Yeah, it certainly looks like an arcade game made to steal quarters from kids. Yeah.
Okay.
I also hate that seeing those purple soldiers because Pedro and I have been marathoning Dragon Ball. I think I'm thinking of the Red Ribbon Army.
Yeah.
I was like, God dang it. But it looks fine. Inoffensive. But yeah, if I'm ever playing this, I'm just gonna cheat.
Mm-hmm. That's trust me. Trying to play this game fair, like especially now that it's just way too cheap. It really is. It's very very cheap. All right, Jova.
Whew, well, this is a bona fide arcade game of the time. I mean, it is nice that it did kick off the franchise that people would come to know and love, and for its time, yeah, I guess you could call it good in the sense that it does its job very well as an arcade game. Okay, that said, it is archaic in a lot of areas, obviously. Like, it's a game from the 80s. Even if it was good, there were going to be things about it that were archaic. Very weird that you can't jump. But, again, I get it. They wanted to show off this gimmick here and there. Honestly, the music, visuals, they're all fine. My only really big problem with this game is its BS difficulty. And, well, yeah, it's an arcade game. I know what I'm getting into with that. It still is a problem, though. I would argue there are some arcade games, modern or hell, even older back then, that did their jobs better without having to be just borderline impossible without quarters. That said, it's the start of a franchise, and one that did it well enough.
Tail.
All right, I'll go next. Yeah, it pretty much what Jova said. It's a first title if can ever be C1. As per tradition for Capcom back in the day, it is brutal for what it wants to do. Not Ghost and Goblins level. That one still takes the cake if you actually know anything about it. But you can tell that this one is still designed to be played as slowly and methodically as possible, possibly with a friend too. Otherwise it will suck away all of your quarters. But it is still nice that Capcom back in they created so many different franchises, still with a generic idea at the basis of all of them. Some were beat 'em ups, but others were like these platformer or side scroller, just with a gimmick attached to it. In this case, the grappling hook, which later would become the bionic arm. So it's nice, but to see that these spawned an idea that got continued, not properly as other Capcom franchises went, but at least it actually went somewhere, even if it right now is currently dormant. But that's, amplifying on that, it's a story for another time. Pedro.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like, it's a classic, but yeah, much like Zelda 1, it's a classic that is better to view as a museum piece of history rather than something to be played, because, yeah, this game definitely is an arcade game, and even NES. For the NES version is probably the overall that was better put together because it wasn't made specifically for the purpose of sucking your quarters. But at the same time, yeah, this is the first one, and you can see why, because it really is a game that is very basic and has some really cool idea with the grappling hook, but it doesn't really take full advantage of it. And the lack of jump is a bit too much. You don't need to remove the ability to jump to incentivize. There are better ways of incentivizing us to use the grappling hook. You don't need to you don't need to handicap us like this, to be honest with you.
It's a prime example of a product or, well, anything being a little too committed to its gimmick, essentially.
Yeah. That being said, yeah, that was Bionic Commando. We'll see which game in the franchise will do next, everybody. Maybe that little thing that Teo has, maybe not. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.